Hi everyone, welcome back to my Daniel Smith series. We're nearing the end, but we're not quite there yet. I think there'll be one more video of the mainstream colours after this one. We are working our way today from the sort of earthier end of the greens through the earth yellows and the earth reds into the browns, and 32 colours as usual in these videos. I am using my Proline Plus size 8 brush from ProArt, and all of the spots have been slightly pre-wetted by just dampening with the tip of a brush about 5 minutes ago. The black splodges for transparency are Spectrum Noir True Black alcohol marker, and paper is Aquafine Cheap Shitty Awful student grade hot press because it doesn't need to be good, it's only swatching. So Deep Sap Green is the first cab off of the rank today, and this is a very convenience mix. It's light fastness 2 non-granulating transparent paint. It lifts very easily from the spot, it is moderately staining, and it is PO48 quinacridone gold, PY3 Hansa yellow 10G, and PB27 Prussian blue. I think this could actually be quite a useful colour, probably more use than standard sap green is, because it's got that more earthy realistic look to it. I think that could actually be a useful colour, but you know, you can mix it yourself, you don't actually need to buy it. Next up is Perylene Green, a favourite of mine. This is an unrated but probably light fastness 1. Moderately staining, non-granulating, semi-transparent, and it is PBK31 Paleogen Black. Yes, a black. It was originally marketed as a black, and if you use it dilute enough, you can get quite a nice, deep, beautiful, very useful green. And this is that green. I really like it. I mean, it's not to everybody's tastes, but I find a little goes a long way with it, and you can also do some quite interesting, very, very loose washes with it. It's a nice background colour. It's good for toning the paper first, and really good for monochrome. So if you want to paint in Envel dye, just paint with one colour. That's a really good one to choose. Next one, Undersea Green. This is one of those colours that a lot of people think is amazing. You can fake this yourself, you don't actually need to buy it. It's PB29 Ultramarine, PO49 Quinacridone Deep Gold, and PY150 Nickel Azo Yellow. You can buy them and mix it, you don't need to buy this. It is light fastness 1, moderately staining, granulating and semi-transparent. There's really, to me, nothing special about this colour at all. It's just a convenience mix that separates out very slightly as it dries, so you get a little bit of texture. I don't think there's anything that outstanding about it. Some people seem to rave about it. I think, again, the only use I could ever see for it is if you wanted to paint single colour paintings but have a bit of texture. That could be useful. Olive Green next, which is granulating, staining, light fastness 1, low staining, semi-transparent, and this is again a convenience mix of PBR7 brown iron oxide, PB29 ultramarine, and PY97 diarylide yellow FGL. This is again a useful green because it's a muddy yellow green, which is a colour you actually get in nature, and because it granulates you get a nice texture. This is useful for woodland scenes, really useful. Next up, Green Gold. I noticed something about Daniel Smith paints. They seem to have quite a few pairs of colours where they have like a something and a deep, or a something and a pale, or a something and a rich. And the something is usually not a conventional way of making that colour, and the pale or the rich or the whatever is the version that a lot of other companies use. So in this case, Green Gold here, this is not Green Gold as you would normally find it. But the rich Green Gold next door is what you'd normally call Green Gold in most brands. So what they're calling Green Gold is a light fastness 2, moderately staining, non-granulating transparent paint mixed of PG36 Thalocyanine Green Yellow shade, PY3 Hansa Yellow 10G, and PY150, which is Nickel Azo Yellow. This is a very, very, very vivid, bright yellowish green, and to me is not Green Gold. That hue does not resemble what I'm used to calling Green Gold. That's usually what I would call, in most brands that sell that colour, call it Permanent Green Very Light, or Permanent Green Light, that sort of thing. This is what I would call green gold. They call it rich green gold. It is a non-granulating, semi-transparent, low staining, unrated but light fastness, probably 1. PY129 Burgundy Yellow. This is what most brands will call green gold or azo green. And that is a perfectly normal green gold. Green gold is technically a yellow, not a green, and that is exactly the sort of hue that I would expect to have. Really useful colour. I use it more and more. I'm finding more and more uses for it. Next up is Nickel Azo Yellow, which, no surprise, is single pigment PY150 Nickel Azo Yellow. It is non-granulating and transparent. It is low staining and has a light fastness of 1. This is a colour I use a lot from other brands. I find it a good alternative to gamboge. I think it has a really, really delicious, bright, sunny daffodil sort of colour, depending on how dilute you make it, and I really like it. I find it very useful. Next we have Verona Gold Ochre, which is PY43 Yellow Iron Oxide brackets natural. It is granulating, it is transparent, it is non-staining, and it has a light fastness of 1. Now, there is nothing that says this has to be actually gold ochre from Verona. They can really call it what they like, but the fact that it's PY43 implies it is certainly a natural iron oxide that they're using, that this hasn't been cooked or otherwise chemically messed with. It is quite low on pigment load, even though it's been wetted. May revisit that and see if I can get a bit more colour on there. I think it's very insipid. I'm going to flip upside down now just for ease of giving you a better view. This next one is French ochre, which is granulating, transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1, and again PY43 yellow natural iron oxide. This is a much warmer, more red, almost pink ochre. I like it. Very interesting, almost peachy kind of toned, very subtle. Next we have Burgundy Yellow Ochre, which has exactly the same properties and is again PY43. This one is very similar to the Wallace Seymour Burgundy Yellow Ochres. It's got a real sort of glowing, almost glowing orange tone, which I really like. I find this very useful. Again, you can paint single pigment paintings with colours like this. Good exercise for getting values right is to paint in a single colour, and these very attractive ochres are nice colours for that. Next we have sort of standard iron oxide, again, well sorry, yellow ochre, same properties, again PY43, but this is the sort of bog standard yellow ochre. This is a little bit more brown or a little bit more orange than the others that we've done so far, and has an easier release and probably a higher pigment load, I would guess, or a coarser grind that gives it more colour more readily. Next we have Mars Yellow, which is PY42, which is yellow iron oxide bracket synthetic, granulating, semi-transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1. This one releases really easily, really readily. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous colour there. Really like that. The granulation on that is really beautiful. I would use that rather than yellow ochre, to be honest. I think that's really beautiful. Next we have Raw Sienna, and this is granulating, semi-transparent, low staining, light fastness 1, made with PBR7 brown iron oxide, and this is a much more warm reddish tone compared to the ochres. It's not as orange as a burnt sienna would be. It's not as yellow as some raw siennas, like the Winsor & Newton one is basically a transparent yellow iron oxide, but that's a really nice one. Next up, quinacridone gold. This is granulating, transparent, low staining, light fastness 1, and it is PO48 quinacridone gold and PY150 nickel azo yellow. Really beautiful colour. Granulating and transparent, which is a really nice combination for those really nice vivid colours, and the gold overlayer granulates up and the yellow underneath shows through. It's a really nice way of doing it. Transparent yellow iron oxide next, granulating, transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1, PY42 yellow iron oxide brackets synthetic. This is absolutely quite yellow compared to the ochres, even though it's the same, nominally the same pigment. I mean, it's probably quite significantly different in terms of preparation, but similar nonetheless. And next we have the Monte Amiata Natural Sienna, which I don't think is still manufactured. And this is PBR7 brown iron oxide. It is a granulating, transparent, low staining, light fastness 1 colour. I can kind of see one of the many reasons why they probably don't bother making this one anymore. It's very, very similar to some of the others, but you can't truly tell until they've dried down just how similar they are. And I think for the type of painting I do, certainly, I need one ochre yellow. I don't need 6 or 7, so I would not need to buy that many. Next up, we have the environmentally friendly yellow iron oxide, which uses PBR6 iron oxide hydroxide brown, granulating, semi-transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1, and this is a very, very, very red colour. This is not really a yellow iron oxide at all. That is a really, really red pigment. I'm wondering if they've perhaps mixed up this and the brown or the red version on the chart. We'll learn that later, but that is certainly not a yellow one. Next one I think discontinued as well is Goethite brown ochre, granulating, semi-transparent, low staining, light fastness 1, and this uses yellow natural iron oxide PY43. Goethite is a mineral named after the poet Goethe, so it's not goethite or goethite, it's goethite. And a mineral was named after the poet Goethe, a black, beautiful iron mineral that you find quite commonly in the area I live, actually. I don't know whether this uses goethite or whether it's goethite brown, as in the colour of goethite. Not 100% certain of that. Next we have quinacridone gold deep, which uses PO48 quinacridone gold and PY150 nickel azo yellow. It is non-granulating, transparent, and has a light fastness of 1. This is a much more red colour than the quinacridone gold that we had on the last sheet. This is really orange, actually. But again, it's got that underlayer of yellow, which I think makes it far more pretty than Quin Gold in other brands. Next up, Italian Deep Ochre, which is granulating, semi-transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1. And this is again yellow natural iron oxide PY43. This has got a red undertone to it. It's a yellow ochre, really, but it's got a red undertone to it. It's similar to gold ochre in some brands, I guess. That's the nearest thing I could probably say, and the granulation is already beginning on that, so we'll see how that looks when dry. Next we have quinacridone burnt orange, PO48, quinacridone gold, single pigment, granulating, transparent, low staining, and light fastness 1. Oh, I've missed one. I've missed burnt yellow ochre out. We'll come back to that when I get to the end. Oh, I've missed several out. Gosh, I've been very irresponsible. I've actually managed to miss out about 6 paints. We'll add them on at the end. We don't need to worry. Quinacridone burnt orange next, as planned. And this is kind of like the orange component of this one without the yellow underlayer, because that's exactly how it's made. No surprise there. Really pretty. Really like that. Next is quinacridone Sienna, which is a convenience mix of PO48 quinacridone gold, PR209 quinacridone red, PY150 nickel azo yellow. It is granulating, transparent, low staining, and has a light fastness of 1. This is kind of like that last one with some red added, because that's exactly what it is. So if you had just this one, Quinburn Orange, you could make all these others really easily. Next is Pompeii Red. It's not Pompeii Red, it's Pompeii Red, because there's two I's. Pompeii Red or Pompeii Red, meaning from Pompeii, or named in honour of Pompeii, more accurately. It's granulating, semi-transparent, low staining, and has a light fastness 1, and it is PBR7 brown iron oxide. With a little bit of work, this one is lifting reasonably well. It's a quite flat brown, actually. There's not anything particularly interesting about that. I mean, it's a warm brown, but it's quite bland. Next is Terra Eccoilano, which is granulating, semi-transparent, low staining, light fastness 1, and this is a dual pigment. It is a mixture of brown iron oxide PBR7 and red synthetic iron oxide PR101. And it's a really nice reddish hue, very pretty, exactly what a Terra Eccoilano is normally, very, very red, but with transparency and granulation to it. Useful for making flesh tones, amongst other things. I'm going to flip the paper over now. Next up is Italian Venetian Red, and this is granulating, semi-transparent, non-staining, light fastness 1, and it is PR101 red synthetic iron oxide again. A little bit of work to get this one to be lifting, but it's very red, much more red than Terra Eccoilano was. And the granulation is already developing. It's really interesting. Next is English Red Earth, which is granulating, opaque, non-staining, light fastness 1, pigment red 101 red synthetic iron oxide, and this one lifts with reasonable ease. There we go. Not as opaque as it claims to be, but I'll try it again a bit later. Next we have Quinacridone Burnt Scarlet, a favourite of mine, which is non-granulating, transparent, low staining, unrated but probably light fastness 1, PR206 Quinacridone Burnt Scarlet. This is what many companies call brown madder, this pigment. Really, really beautiful. Very usable, very useful colour. Especially if you like painting in transparents, it's a nice alternative to some of the red iron oxides. Next is Perylene Maroon, which is PR179 Perylene Maroon. It is non-granulating, semi-transparent, heavily staining, and has a light fastness of 1. And it is that wonderful blood-coloured perylene that everybody loves. And again, if you want an alternative to sort of an iron oxide red, but transparent and not minerally, that's a nice one. So what I like in the Daniel Smith range is that there are these organic transparent alternatives in similar hues to most of the earth colours, which is really nice. Next up is Deep Scarlet, which is PR175 benzimidazolone red HFT, unrated but probably light fastness 1, non-granulating, semi-transparent and moderately staining. This is a real bloody kind of colour. Even more than the Perylene. I like that. Again, I think it would just be a nice alternative to some of those red oxides. Next is Naphthamide Maroon, which is unrated but probably light fastness 2. Probably light fastness 1. It is low staining, non-granulating and semi-transparent, and it uses PR171 benzimidazolone Bordeaux. This is a lovely purple, almost like a caput mortuum, but transparent and not as heavy. So again, I would use this as an organic alternative to Caput Mortuum, the iron pigment, if you wanted that kind of hue, but you didn't want the heaviness or the lack of transparency. Next is German greenish raw umber, granulating semi-transparent, non-staining light fastness 1, PBR7 iron oxide brackets brown. And I've seen something very similar from Schminke in their latest release, their 2017 release. I think they called it raw umber greenish or umber greenish or something like that, and it's exactly the same. It's a sort of an umber, but it's got a green undertone to it. And last from this set is Permanent Brown, which is non-granulating, transparent, moderately staining, not rated, but probably a light fastness of 1, and it uses PBR25 benzimidazolone brown. And I've encountered this recently in another brand, and I love this pigment. It's a wonderful, rich, proper brown, but transparent and organic, and I like that about it. So I'll zoom out and I'll just show you these as they've dried down a little bit now. And just while we wait a moment for these to dry down, what I'll just tell you is a few things, parish notice if you like. So burnt yellow ochre, roasted French ochre, Burgundy red ochre, Indian red, Venetian red, and Italian burnt sienna were missed out by me by accident when I set these charts up. I'll just add those 6 to the final batch that I'm doing next. No real harm done. They're not actually in perfect order of hue anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I want to just show you some from the last set that I did. I just wanted you to see... Oh, sorry, it's these ones. Some of those nice greens now that have had chance to dry, the nice granulation there. Don't think any of the others I really wanted you to see right now. I think that's all of them. So if we go back a step to the ones we looked at just now, these deep sap greens, perylene greens, undersea green, and olive green. Olive green's really nice. Green gold there I think is too vile and acid, but the rich green gold, the traditional Urgazan yellow, is very useful. Nicolazo yellow again, very useful. A nice transparent alternative to yellow ochre. Verona gold ochre I found insipid, ditto French ochre, ditto Burgundy yellow ochre. The yellow ochre was okay. The Mars yellow I think would be a nice alternative to yellow ochre if you wanted some extra texture. The Monte Amiato Natural Sienna, which was very, very popular but has been discontinued. It's a really nice tone. Transparent yellow oxide is nice. It's more transparent than yellow ochre, and I know a lot of painters do like that. I personally don't. I think yellow ochres being opaque makes them useful. Quin gold again is a nice hue alternative if you wanted to have something similar. And the raw sienna here is a proper raw sienna. It's not a yellowy one. The environmentally friendly yellow iron oxide was not yellow, so we'll move past that. The Goethite brown ochre I really liked. The Quin deep gold, the Quin burnt orange, the Quin sienna. These two were convenience mixes, so if I was advising anyone, I'd say buy Nicolazo yellow, Quin burnt orange, and the PR209 Quin red. I can't remember what they sell it as, and then you can make all 3 of these yourself. The Italian deep ochre I felt was very flat. The Pompeii red was nice, but the Terra Ercolano was the proper sort of fleshy colour, which is as it should be. The Italian Venetian red, again, quite fleshy. The English red earth was a little flat. The Quin burnt scarlet I really liked. Perylene maroon, what's not to love there. And on the bottom row, the deep scarlet was lovely. The naphthalmide maroon I'm in love with. That is a great alternative to Caput Mortuum if you want to lose the heaviness. The German greenish raw umber I like, and the permanent brown is absolutely lovely. Really liking these earth tones from Daniel Smith, and I can't wait to explore the final instalment. So the final instalment, which will be coming really soon on my channel, will go from burnt yellow ochre through those ones I missed, and we'll pick up again at raw umber violet, and we'll go all the way through the blacks, and well, all the way through the browns, the blacks, and the whites, and we will finish our mainstream colours there. And I'm still obviously releasing the specialist colours like the iridescence and the pearlescence in instalments. And what I'm going to do, I've decided, when I get to the end, I'm going to take all these different Daniel Smith videos and bundle them together as one long dirty video, so that if anyone just wants to sit and watch me talk about Daniel Smith paints for about 4 hours, go for it. Thank you all very much. Good evening.